Hi everyone. So today we will study about Harshavardhana, the last great ruler of northern India. Yes, the last. The last great emperor to have ruled northern region of India before the Islamic rule. So we will deal about his life, about his reign, and about his achievements and accolades which lent him such a big status of a good ruler and a great ruler. In this slide, we will know a brief background as in where did King Harsha belong to. By the way, in case if you do not know, he also was known by the name of Harsha or King Harsha. So we will know about where did he belong to, who ruled prior to his rule, etc. etc. So let's start this one and move further. So Harshavardhana ruled from 7th century AD to 12th century AD. From 606 to 647 AD. He originally was from Haryana, which is Thaneshwar, at a place in Haryana called Thaneshwar, but later on shifted to Kannauj. After the decline of Gupta, many kingdoms came together, and of all those kingdoms, Pushyabhuti was one of them. And King Harshavardhana belonged to Pushyabhuti dynasty. Now there is a brief story to this which is not needed if we do not want to know about it in great detail, or if we do not want to know in a story format. There's a story that how Harsha's father defeated Hunaz, and later on how Harsha's brother Rajavardhana came to the throne but was killed in a planning or plotting, and all those things which happened in a course of time, and how Harsha was able to come to the throne, and he was he was one of the undisputed rulers to have ascended the throne, because after his brother's death, the council of ministers along with the chief minister decided that he is the most deserving candidate to have who deserves to ascend the throne. So he was one of the most undisputed rulers, and this is a brief story to it. If you wish, you can go through that. I have not included that much. Now, not deviating much. Now, two valuable accounts speak of his administration. Let me change the color. Two valuable accounts speak of his administration first. Now, first was Harsh Charitra, written by Banabhat, who adorned his court during his rule, and second, a Chinese traveller named Huinsang had visited his court during his rule, and he wrote an account called Siyuki. So basically, these two accounts speak of Harsha's administration, Harsha's administrative policies, Harsha's rule, a lot during that time. Harshavardhana himself wrote 3 plays, namely Priyadarshika, Ratnavali and Naganada. So this is a basic information which you can give in initial lines of your answer to make it more comprehensive. Now we shall move on to the administration and the features of Harsha's administration. Now, when we talk about the ideologies with which Harshavardhana governed his kingdom, we find a lot more similarity in context of his reign with Gupta's period. So, he ruled his empire on similar lines as Gupta's did, but two features which made Harsha's reign different from that of Gupta's were that a system of feudalism and decentralized government prevailed during that rule. Now, you must be wondering what these two basic terms mean. So, feudalism was a system when, ancient times, what used to happen that, in terms of service or in terms of help, the small and marginalized or the peasant class or the artisans would get land in return of the favor they gave to king during wars. So that was a system of a feudalism which prevailed during rule of Harshavardhana. And a decentralized government refers to that system of government where multiple parties take their independent decisions. Like what happens basically is that there is a central government, and we are governed by the central government, right? We abide by the decisions, rules and regulations of the central government. But what used to happen under the decentralized government was that there were multiple parties, there were multiple groups of people, and they used to take their own independent decisions. No single authority was there to have a say in any matter. So, these two basic terms are those. Now, in fact, feudalism began under Harshavardhana. So, feudalism first came into practice during the rule of Harshavardhana. Now, during his rule, he had a large army of 60,000 elephants and 1 lakh horses. Now, this was really a big entourage to have, and even Mauryas, who ruled for quite a large span of time, didn't have such a large army. So, that was something very humongous. Now, moving on, Harshavardhana as a ruler was inclined towards monarchical representation. This is one of the features of his rule, and he was a powerful kingdom and no doubt a supreme lawmaker. In spite of this, the law and order of his kingdom was not well maintained, and this is evident when a Chinese traveller, Huinsung, was robbed, which was not a good image to be considered for a ruler. Now, Harshavardhana was very much properly known for his rigid and very good law making. He was a very good lawmaker. But there an incident happened which, questioned his authority. A Chinese traveller named Huinsung had come to visit India during Harsha's rule, and he got robbed badly. Though the, offenders were punished, but the punishment was very liberal. The offenders got life imprisonment instead of any hardcore punishment. So, this is also evident that being a very supreme lawmaker, the law and order of his administration was not sufficient, or was not good, to be so to speak. Harshavardhana's brilliance was also due to the fact that he was responsible towards people's problem. He understood their problems and prescribed the solutions. He even kept full vigilance over many places of his empire for proper administration. Now, he was very responsible king. He had great concern towards people's problem. He sought the remedies, he sought the solutions, and he would always recommend those solutions to people. He was never negligent. He was never negligent of his people. He understood their problems very well, and he even kept vigilance over many places of his empire for proper administration. He was not confined to the area he was ruling, but all those areas which came under his rule, he took full vigilance of that, and he was a proper guiding factor in those areas. Now, proceeding further, under his reign, regional bodies were given autonomy, that is self-rule, to carry on their own affairs. Now, here comes the factor which, justifies the decentralized government during Harsha's time. Now, see, regional bodies were given independent, choice to take their own decisions in their own matters, in their own affairs. So, here the factor of decentralized government aptly suits, and this properly justifies that decentralized government prevailed during Harsha's time, as regional bodies were, given liberty to take their own independent decisions. Not to forget, Harsha came to the throne after the panel discussion and consent of Council of Ministers. When Council of Ministers agreed with the Chief Minister to bring Harshavardhana to the throne after the death of his brother Rajyavardhana, then was he able to prevail to the throne. Now, this is a basic knowledge that when Harshavardhana came to the throne, he was one of the most undisputed rulers, right? Why? Because, he came to the throne with the consent of Council of Ministers and Chief Ministers at that time. After the death of his brothers, Council of Ministers and Chief Minister had a formal meeting together, and they, with a very full-fledged consent, they decided that Harshavardhana is going to ascend the throne. So, this justifies this point. Now moving further, Harshavardhana was great in maintaining civil services during this time. The king would give instructions to them for the proper functioning of the state. Officers with higher designation were of utmost importance. Now even today, what we see in bureaucracy, that the one with the highest authority or the one with the highest rank is considered to be of utmost importance. So was the case in Harsha's administration. Officers with high rank, high designation were of utmost importance. Revenue system during his reign was quite good. People did not feel the burden of taxation. Taxation policy was not oppressive. Revenues came from trade and commerce, but levy on goods were very light. Soldiers and small officers received their payment in the form of cash. So this makes it very clear that revenue was not very oppressive during Harsha's time. He did take proper care of his people. He did not problematize the situation. He did not keep excessive burden of taxation on them, and the revenue majorly came from trade and commerce, but levy on goods were very light, and soldiers and officers used to get their payment or salary in form of cash. So this is all. Now moving further, religious toleration was one of the main features of Harsha's administration. Religious toleration, which means he was properly and wholeheartedly tolerant towards other religion. I wrote relation here, it has to be religion. Different religion could be practiced during Harsha's time, and however Buddhism was gradually fading or losing its charm, Shiva worship progressed during this period. So this is a sort of religious features during Harsha's administration. Now Harshavardhana stated keen interest in learning. Jaydev wrote a book called Gita Govind, in which he compared Harshavardhana with Kalidas. Now such was his fondness for knowledge. He initially I told you that he also wrote 3 books, plus he has been compared to Kalidas, one of the greatest figures in literary world, Kalidas. Harsha had great patron of scholars and writers. Banabhat and Dandi were one of them. Now Banabhat, who wrote Harsha Charitra, and Dandi were one of the 2 great patrons of Harsha's kingdom. So, there were some bullet points relating to the features of Harshavardhana's rule. Actually, you can elaborate a lot more on this. You can give the subsections and then you can write all the points. But I have done this way for the sake of convenience. Now, moving further, we shall know the achievements of Harshavardhana as a ruler. So it's no deny that he's tasted some remarkable success during his reign. He once again took the northern India to the pinnacle of progress. Hence, we will see and appreciate some of his achievements. His administration once again united and integrated the North India altogether. Now, we saw that after the fall of Gupta dynasty, everything was scattered. All the kingdoms got disintegrated. But when Harshavardhana came, the North India, once again got its glory and charm. He united and integrated the North India altogether. Harshavardhana took full control over areas like Punjab, Kannauj, Odisha, etc. with his effective rule and strategies. By then, he established full supremacy over the kingdoms of North India. He came and he took the North India by storm. He took Kannauj to the paragon of excellence and made it a great trading center, thus adding to the great economy of the state. Now, under his able administration and efficient leadership, Kannauj reached the pinnacle of excellence and became one of the major trading centers at that time, thus adding to the great economy of the state, obviously. And he had a large army which spoke of great military strength. As I always, as I initially said, that he had a great army of 60,000 elephants and 1 lakh horses. So that's not a small army to speak of. That was quite huge. Now moving further, literary aspect too flourished during his reign as he wholeheartedly welcomed great writers and scholars. Banabhatta and Dandi were one of them. I actually told you this point, and this is quite evident that literary, aspect flourished like anything during his rule, and lot of literary achievements could be seen. He was a great devotee of Shiva, already said, although later on he adopted Buddhism and prevented animal sacrifices in his kingdom and did not allow non-vegetarian food practices. Now he was very, rigid in those manners. He was a great devotee of Shiva, later on adopted Buddhism and did not allow people to adopt non-vegetarian food practices. One of his greatest achievements was that he could maintain a cordial yet diplomatic ties. He maintained good relations with China, Sri Lanka and also with King Bhaskara Varman of Kamrupa. So he was very friendly, he was very cordial and he was very diplomatic. He was a very good diplomat and hence he was able to maintain a very diplomatic and cordial relations with his neighbors. And this, helped him in a long run. Now moving further, we are very close to our last topic, which is the decline of Harshavardhana. How this humongous rule came to an end. How Harshavardhana ultimately subsided. How was he defeated? So Harshavardhana was ultimately defeated by a South Indian ruler called Pulkesin II, who belonged to Chalukya dynasty. You must remember his defeat. Who defeated him? And where did he belong to? So Pulkesin II defeated Harshavardhana in a battle and he belonged to Chalukya dynasty. Now there was a repercussion after his death. After Harshavardhana's death, Harsha's armies and people disintegrated and got scattered and could not keep up the previous glory of the kingdom, and this was due to the decentralized government at that time, which I already spoke. Hence Harshavardhana's rule came to an end. Hope you liked the video and be connected for such more uploads. Thank you.